My husband slapped me at our first family brunch as a married couple. Not during an argument in private. Not after some long, ugly fight behind a closed bedroom door. He slapped me in his mother's dining room. In front of his father, his younger sister, his aunt, and two cousins who had driven in that morning. Because, according to his mother, the first Sunday after a wedding belongs to family. The table was still full. Blueberry pancakes stacked on a white ceramic platter. Bacon arranged in a neat little fan. A glass bowl of strawberries and cantaloupe. A pitcher of orange juice with lemon slices floating on top. Which was strange. Because no one puts lemons in orange juice, unless they are trying very hard to look expensive. His sister, Madison, was holding a mimosa in one hand and scrolling through her phone with the other. His father had not looked up from his plate in almost 10 minutes. And my mother-in-law, Diane Whitaker, sat at the head of the table in a cream-colored blouse. Pearls at her throat. One hand resting on a white folder, like she was guarding a will. I should have known the folder mattered. I should have known it was the real reason they had invited me there. But I had been married for less than 24 hours. And some foolish, soft part of me, I still wanted to believe this was just brunch. Diane smiled at me with that polished, country club smile of hers. Then she tapped the folder twice with her fingernail. Claire, she said, we thought this would be a good time to get a few practical things handled. My husband, Ryan, reached under the table and squeezed my knee. At first, it looked affectionate. Then his fingers tightened. Not enough to bruise. Just enough to warn me. I looked down at his hand. Then I looked back at his mother. What kind of practical things? I asked. Diane opened the folder and slid a stack of papers toward me. The top page had a title in bold letters. Whitaker Family Contribution Agreement. I read the first line. Then the second. Then the third. By the time I reached the first paragraph, the room had gone quiet enough for me to hear the ice shifting in Madison's glass. The agreement said that, as Ryan's wife, I would begin contributing $4,000 a month into a family emergency fund managed by Diane. It said Ryan would be added as an authorized user on my primary credit card. It said any major financial decision I made after marriage should be discussed with Ryan and, when appropriate, his parents. And, near the bottom of the first page, in language so neat it almost looked harmless, it said I agreed to assist with outstanding family obligations connected to the wedding celebration and household transition. Household transition. That was a pretty way of saying debt. I stared at the paper for another few seconds. Then I placed it back on the table. I'm not signing this. Diane's smile did not move. Ryan's hand tightened harder on my knee. His aunt gave a tiny laugh, like I'd misunderstood a joke. Madison finally looked up from her phone. What do you mean? You're not signing it? I mean, I'm not signing a financial agreement I'm seeing for the first time at brunch. Ryan leaned closer to me. His voice stayed low, but the edge underneath it was new. Claire, he said, don't do this right now. I turned my head slightly toward him. Do what? His eyes flicked toward his mother. Then toward his father. Then back to me. Embarrass me. That was the first time I saw it clearly. Not the anger. Not yet. The fear? Ryan was not afraid of hurting me. He was afraid of looking small in front of his mother. Diane folded her hands on the table. Honey, she said, this is not some hostile business contract. This is family. In our family, we take care of each other. I nodded once. That's good. Then you won't mind if I take it home and let my attorney review it. The room changed. It was not loud. No one gasped. No one stood up. But something cold moved across the table. Diane's smile finally dropped. Attorney? She said. You've been married one day. Exactly. Madison snorted. Wow. She said. That's actually insane. Ryan's father set down his fork. Slowly. carefully, like the sound itself was supposed to correct me. Marriage requires trust, he said. I looked at him. So does giving someone access to my bank accounts. Ryan's hand left my knee. For 1 second, I thought maybe he was going to defend me. That was the last generous thought I ever had about my husband. Instead, he pushed his chair back. The legs scraped hard against the floor. Can I talk to you in the kitchen? He asked. His voice was calm enough for strangers. Not for me. I did not move. No, I said. You can talk to me here. A red flush crept up Ryan's neck. Diane inhaled through her nose. Madison whispered, "Oh me God." Ryan leaned over me. One hand on the back of my chair. You are my wife, he said quietly. You are not going to sit here and make me look weak in front of my family. I looked at the folder, then at his hand, then at his face. If refusing to hand your mother my money makes you look weak, I said, that's not my problem. The slap came so fast that, for half a second, my brain did not call it pain. It called it sound. A sharp, flat crack that cut through the dining room and seemed to leave the air split open behind it. My face turned to the side. My left ear rang. The taste of metal bloomed at the back of my mouth. Not blood exactly, but something hot and bitter. My hand did not fly to my cheek. I did not scream. I did not cry. I just sat there, looking at the lemon slices floating in the orange juice pitcher. One of them had sunk halfway down. For some reason, that was what I noticed. Not Ryan breathing hard beside me. Not Madison's mouth hanging open. Not his father staring at his plate again, as if silence could make him innocent. And not Diane, who picked up her napkin, dabbed the corner of her mouth, and said, well, maybe now we can all calm down. That was when something inside me went perfectly still. Not numb. Not broken. Still. There is a difference. Numb means you cannot feel what happened. Still means you feel it so clearly that your body stops wasting energy on anything unnecessary. I turned my face back toward Ryan. His hand was still raised halfway, like even he had not fully caught up with what he had done. There he was. The man who had cried during his vows the day before. The man who had held my hand in front of 200 people and promised to honor me. The man who had kissed my forehead under a chandelier, while his mother told everyone what a beautiful family we were becoming. I looked at him, and all I could think was, there you are. Not the mask. Not the performance. You. I stood up slowly. The room stayed silent. I picked up the white folder, closed it, and placed it in the middle of the table. Then I reached into my purse. Ryan blinked. What are you doing? I pulled out a second folder. Mine was blue. Plain. Unmarked. The kind of folder people ignore because it does not look dramatic. I opened it and removed 3 pages. The first was the lease for the townhouse Ryan and I had moved into 2 weeks earlier. The second was the wire confirmation for the deposit and 6 months of prepaid rent. The third was a copy of the credit card statement Diane had been using for family expenses since the engagement party. I placed all 3 pages beside her agreement. Diane's eyes moved before her face did. She recognized the numbers first, then the names, then the problem. The lease? I said, is in my name? Ryan's mouth opened. No sound came out. The deposit came from my account. The prepaid rent came from my account. The credit card your family has been using is attached to my credit line. Madison sat up. What credit card? I looked at her. The one that paid your certification deposit last month? Her face went pale in a very satisfying way. Diane's fingers curled around the edge of the table. Claire, she said. And for the first time since I had met her, there was no polish in her voice. Just panic hiding under manners. I looked back at my husband. You have until tonight to pack whatever belongs to you. His face twisted. You can't kick me out of our home. Our home? I repeated. Then I picked up the lease. and held it where he could see the signature line. My name is the only one on it. His father finally looked at me. Diane whispered, Ryan. But Ryan was staring at the paper, like the ink had betrayed him. I slid the documents back into my blue folder. Then I picked up Diane's agreement and dropped it into the bowl of syrup in the center of the table. The pages folded slowly into the thick amber surface. No one moved. I picked up my purse. Ryan stepped toward me. Claire. Don't walk out that door. I looked at his hand. The one that had hit me. Then I looked him in the eye. You slapped the only person keeping a roof over your head. I walked past him. Past Madison. Past Diane. Past the untouched pancakes. Past the lemon-filled orange juice. Past the family that had mistaken my quietness for permission. Behind me. Diane's voice rose. You are being dramatic. This is not how a wife behaves. I stopped at the doorway. Not because her words hurt. Because I wanted her to hear me clearly. No. I said. This is how someone protects what was hers before you touched it. Then I opened the front door and stepped into the cold Sunday morning. My cheek was burning. My hands were shaking now. But only now that none of them could see. I got into my car, locked the doors, and sat there for exactly 12 seconds. Then I called my father. He answered on the second ring. Claire, he said, everything okay? I looked at the Whitaker house through the windshield. The curtains in the dining room were moving. Someone was watching me. I touched my cheek with 2 fingers. It was already swelling. No. I said, I need the file. My father did not ask which file. He did not ask what happened. He only went quiet for a moment. Then his voice changed. Go to urgent care, he said. Take pictures before the bruising changes. Keep every receipt. And do not go back inside that house. I started the car. In the rearview mirror, the front door opened. Ryan stepped out onto the porch. Barefoot. Still in the navy sweater he had worn to brunch. He raised both hands. Like he wanted to calm me down. Like this was still a misunderstanding. Like his palm had not just split my marriage in half. I put the car in reverse. And for the first time since I had said, I do, I smiled. Not because I was happy. Because he had no idea what he had just started. The first time I met Ryan Whitaker, he was standing outside a hospital at 11:30 at night, with 2 coffees in his hands. One was black. One had oat milk, and exactly 1 packet of raw sugar. Mine. I had not told him my coffee order twice. Only once. 3 weeks earlier. A group of us from work had gone to a charity dinner downtown, and he had somehow ended up sitting beside me. At the time, I was 29. I worked as an operations manager for a regional healthcare network. And I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, where the elevator broke every other month. My life was not glamorous. It was organized. There is a difference. I paid my bills on the first of the month. I kept digital copies of everything. I color-coded my calendar, because if I did not, 3 hospital administrators, 2 compliance teams, and 1 very emotional chief nursing officer would destroy my week before Tuesday. Ryan found that charming. At least. That was how he described it. You make responsibility look peaceful. He told me on our 3rd date. I remember laughing. Because no one had ever said anything like that to me before. Most people thought I was too careful. Too practical. Too hard to surprise. Ryan made those things sound beautiful. He showed up early. He remembered small details. If I had a late meeting, he texted without demanding attention. If I said I was tired, he did not make it about him. He drove across town once, because I had mentioned, offhand, that I had not eaten dinner. He arrived with soup, crackers, and a plastic spoon tucked into the paper bag, like he had thought of everything. For almost 2 years, that was the man I thought I was loving. A man who listened. A man who noticed. A man who never raised his voice. When he proposed, He did it on a quiet Thursday evening in my apartment. Not in front of a crowd. Not with a photographer hiding behind a tree. Not with his mother waiting nearby to inspect my reaction. Just him. Me. And the little kitchen table I had bought from a clearance warehouse. When I was 25, he cried before he finished the question. I said yes before he got the ring box open. That is the part people never understand. They think women like me ignore red flags because we are naive. But most red flags do not arrive waving. They arrive folded into kindness. Ryan's first red flag looked like concern. Are you sure you want to keep working that much after we're married? He asked one night, while we were washing dishes. I told him yes. He smiled and kissed my temple. I just don't want you burning yourself out. My mom always says a household runs better when one person isn't trying to prove something to the world. At the time, I only heard the first sentence. I missed the second. His mother, Diane, was harder to miss. She was not cruel when I met her. Cruel would have been easier. Diane was gracious in the way expensive hotels are gracious. Everything polished. Everything scented. Everything slightly too controlled. The first time Ryan brought me to his parents' house, she hugged me with both arms and said, "We are so happy to finally meet the woman who has captured our boy." Our boy. I smiled because that was what polite people do. His father, Mark, shook my hand like I was interviewing for something. His sister, Madison, looked me up and down, said, "Cute dress," and returned to her phone. Dinner was fine. Not warm. Fine. Diane asked about my work, my family, my apartment, my student loans, my retirement plan, and whether my parents were comfortable, not happy, not healthy, comfortable. I remember pausing over that word. Then Ryan touched my back and answered for me. Claire's family is very smart with money, he said proudly. Diane's smile sharpened. How wonderful. After that, money appeared in conversations, the way ants appear in a kitchen. One or two at first. Then everywhere. Diane wanted to know whether I planned to keep my own bank account after marriage. Ryan laughed and said his mother was old-fashioned. Diane asked whether my parents would help with the wedding. Ryan said she just wanted to avoid misunderstandings. Madison joked that I was the responsible one, so I could probably teach Ryan how to budget. Ryan squeezed my hand and said she was teasing. Every time something felt wrong, Ryan translated it into something harmless. That was his gift. He could take a warning sign, sand down the edges, and hand it back to me as affection. When we got engaged, Diane became deeply involved. Not officially. Never officially. She just happened to know a florist. She just happened to have thoughts about the guest list. She just happened to say, "Of course. This is your day," right before explaining why the ballroom she preferred would photograph better. My parents offered to pay for half the wedding. Ryan's parents said they wanted to contribute too. Then the invoices came. Somehow, their contribution became smaller each month. A deposit Diane promised to handle turned into a temporary delay. A rehearsal dinner she insisted on hosting became something my father quietly paid for. After the restaurant called me about the balance. When I asked Ryan about it, he looked embarrassed. "Dad's business has been weird this quarter," he said. "They're proud people. I don't want to humiliate them, so I let it go. Not because I was blind, because I thought kindness meant not keeping score." That was the mistake Diane had been counting on. The townhouse came 2 months before the wedding. It was not a mansion. It was a beautiful 3-bedroom rental in a quiet neighborhood, with maple trees along the sidewalk and a small stone patio out back. It had high ceilings, a clean kitchen, and enough space for the life I thought we were building. Ryan loved it immediately. Diane loved it more. She walked through the living room, with her sunglasses still on top of her head, and said, "This will be perfect for Christmas." I remember laughing. "We haven't even moved in yet." She smiled. "I know. I'm just picturing family. The lease was competitive. The landlord wanted proof of income, references, deposit, and 6 months prepaid because another couple was ready to take it. Ryan hesitated. Not dramatically, just enough. My bonus lands after the wedding, he said. Can we front it from your side and square it later? My father wired the deposit directly. I signed the lease. Because I was the one whose documents were ready. My credit was stronger. My income was cleaner. My paperwork was complete. Ryan thanked me that night, with takeout Thai food and a bottle of champagne. I'll make it up to you, he said. I believed him. By then, believing him had become a habit. The wedding was beautiful, in the way expensive things are beautiful, when no one asks who paid the final invoice. White flowers, gold chairs, a string quartet in the lobby, Diane in a silver dress, receiving compliments like she was the one getting married. During the reception, I saw her talking to one of Ryan's aunts near the dessert table. The aunt glanced at me. Diane said something that made both of them laugh. When I walked over, they went quiet. Then Diane touched my arm and said, "We were just saying how lucky it is when a capable woman marries into a family that knows how to guide her." I did not know what to do with that sentence. So I smiled. That night, Ryan danced with me under warm lights and held me like I was fragile. I know my mom can be a lot, he whispered into my hair. But once she trusts you, she'll do anything for you. I wanted to believe that, too. After the wedding, we went back to the townhouse. Instead of leaving for a honeymoon right away, I had meetings I could not move. Ryan said he did not mind. We would take a trip in a few months, when things calmed down. I was standing in the bathroom, taking pins out of my hair, when he appeared in the doorway. Mom wants us at brunch tomorrow. I looked at him in the mirror. Tomorrow? Just family. Very casual. We got married today. I know. He smiled. That's why she wants to see us. First Sunday as husband and wife. I pulled another pin from my hair. My scalp ached. Ryan. I'm exhausted. It'll be 2 hours. Can we go next weekend? His face changed so quickly. I almost missed it. The softness stayed. But something behind it hardened. It matters to her. I turned around. And what about what matters to me? He sighed. Walked over. And took the pin from my hand. Claire. Please. Don't start our marriage by making my mother feel rejected. There it was again. The translation. My exhaustion became rejection. His mother's demand became tradition. My boundary became a problem to manage. I was too tired to fight it. So I said fine. The next morning, I woke up before him. My cheeks still smelled faintly like the makeup artist's setting spray. My wedding dress hung in a garment bag on the closet door. Ryan's tuxedo jacket was thrown over a chair, one sleeve inside out. For a few quiet minutes, the townhouse felt like ours. Sunlight on the kitchen floor. 2 coffee mugs in the sink. A half-open box of wedding cards on the counter. A life not yet ruined. Ryan came downstairs cheerful. He kissed my shoulder and said, "You look beautiful, Mrs. Whitaker." I smiled, because I still liked hearing it. Mrs. Whitaker. That name lasted less than a day, before it started to feel like a locked room. On the drive to Diane's house, Ryan talked too much. That should have warned me. Ryan was usually comfortable with silence. That morning, he filled every pause. He talked about the wedding photos, the weather, his cousin's bad toast, Madison drinking too much champagne, his mother crying in the hotel bathroom because she was so happy. Then, about 5 minutes from the house, he said, "Oh, by the way, Mom may bring up some family planning stuff." I looked at him. What family planning stuff? Not kids. He laughed too quickly. Just practical things. What practical things? Nothing intense. Ryan. He kept his eyes on the road. Just listen before you react. There are sentences that tell you everything, but only after it is too late. That was one of them. When we pulled into the driveway, Diane was already standing in the doorway. Cream blouse. Pearls. Perfect hair. Behind her, through the dining room window, I could see the brunch table laid out like a photograph in a lifestyle magazine. And beside my plate, placed with perfect care, was a white folder. Diane opened the front door, before Ryan even turned off the engine. That was the first thing I noticed. She had not waited for the doorbell. She had not waited for us to walk up the front steps. She was already there, smiling from the doorway, like she had been watching the driveway. "Newlyweds," she said, stretching the word like a ribbon. Ryan laughed and walked ahead of me. His mother pulled him into a hug first. Not both of us. Him. She cupped the back of his head for a second, the way someone might touch a child returning from summer camp. Then she looked past his shoulder at me. "And there she is," Diane said. "Our new daughter." Our. That word again. I stepped inside and let her kiss the air beside my cheek. The house smelled like coffee, maple syrup, and something buttery warming in the oven. It was the kind of smell that should have made a person feel welcome. But underneath it, there was a sharp lemon cleaner scent. So strong the whole place felt scrubbed for inspection. The dining room was already full. Mark sat at one end of the table, with a mug of black coffee, and the Sunday paper folded beside his plate. Madison was across from him, barefoot, wearing an oversized sweater that probably cost more than my first car payment. Ryan's Aunt Lisa and two cousins sat near the window, talking softly until we entered. Then everyone turned. All at once. "Look at them," Lisa said. "They survived the wedding." Ryan grinned. "Barely." I smiled because that was what the room expected. Diane guided me to the chair beside Ryan. The one with the white folder next to the plate. It was placed neatly between the napkin and the water glass, angled toward me like a menu. I sat down slowly. Ryan took the chair beside me and immediately unfolded his napkin. He did not look at the folder. That was how I knew he already knew it was there. For the first 10 minutes, Diane performed warmth. She asked if we had slept well. She asked if the hotel had sent up the breakfast basket she ordered. She asked if my parents had gotten home safely. Then, without waiting for full answers, she moved on to the food. "Claire, you have to try the casserole. It's Ryan's favorite." She served him first a large square of egg casserole, 2 strips of bacon, 3 pancakes, even though he had not asked. Then she looked at me. "Do you want some?" "Yes?" "Please." She gave me a portion half the size of his. And smiled. "I'm sure you're watching yourself after yesterday. All those pictures." Madison laughed into her mimosa. Ryan looked down at his plate. I picked up my fork and said nothing. That was my first mistake that morning. Not because silence caused what happened. What happened was not my fault. But silence gave them confidence. Diane sat at the head of the table and lifted her coffee cup. "To family?" she said. Everyone repeated it. I did. Too. The word tasted strange in my mouth. A few minutes later, she placed her cup down and touched the white folder. "Well?" she said brightly. "Before everyone gets too full and lazy, there are a few things I'd like us to go over." Ryan shifted beside me. Just once. Barely enough to notice. I noticed. Diane opened the folder. "I know paperwork feels cold," she said. "Especially the morning after such a beautiful wedding. But strong families stay strong because they're clear. They don't let money become emotional." That sounded reasonable. That was the danger of people like Diane. They wrapped control in the language of maturity. She slid the papers toward me. "I had our family accountant clean this up. Nothing complicated. Just a basic agreement so expectations are understood." I stared at the title. Whitaker Family Contribution Agreement. The room held its breath without admitting it. I turned the first page. $4,000 a month. into a family emergency fund. Managed by Diane. The second page. Ryan to be added as an authorized user on my primary credit card. The third. A request to combine liquid savings, where practical, and designate Ryan as co-manager of all household accounts. The fourth. A paragraph saying I understood the Whitaker family had incurred wedding-related costs in reliance on my upcoming role as Ryan's wife, and I agreed to contribute toward repayment as part of good faith household integration. I read that paragraph twice. Then I looked at Diane. What wedding-related costs? Her smile tightened. Oh. Little things. Vendors. Travel. Deposits. Some hospitality expenses. Nothing you need to worry about. If I'm being asked to repay them, I need to worry about them. Madison rolled her eyes. It's not like anyone's asking you to write a check today. I looked back down. The signature line was on the last page. My name had already been typed beneath it. Claire Whitaker. Not Claire Bennett. Claire Whitaker. I had been married long enough for them to rename me on a document I had never seen. I placed the pages back in order. I'm not signing this. That was when Diane stopped pretending the brunch was casual. Her shoulders lowered a fraction. Her voice did. Too. I don't think you understand what this is. I understand it well enough not to sign it at this table. Ryan set his fork down. Claire. I kept my eyes on Diane. If you want me to consider it, I'll take a copy and have my attorney look at it. The room went still. Lisa's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. One cousin looked at the other. Madison gave a short, ugly laugh. Your attorney? It's brunch. Yes. I said. And that's why this is inappropriate. Ryan leaned closer. Can we not? Not what? Turn this into a thing. Diane's eyes moved between us. Ryan. Sweetheart, maybe explain to your wife that this is not adversarial. Your wife. Not Claire. Not daughter. Your wife. A possession passed across the table. Ryan wiped his mouth with his napkin and turned toward me with a smile so tight it looked painful. Mom is just trying to make sure we're all on the same page. We are not all on the same page. I said. That's why she brought a document. Mark cleared his throat. It was the first sound he had made in several minutes. Claire. Marriage is trust. I looked at him. Trust does not require me to give your wife control over $4,000 a month. Diane's face flushed. I am not taking control. Then why are you listed as the manager of the fund? The question landed hard. No one answered. Ryan's knee started bouncing under the table. Madison reached for her mimosa again. Lisa murmured, maybe we should all just eat. Diane ignored her. You are entering a family with traditions, she said. Those traditions existed before you. And they will exist after you. No one is trying to hurt you. You're trying to access my income, my credit, and my savings. We're trying to prevent selfishness from poisoning a marriage before it starts. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was so cleanly absurd. There I was, less than 1 day into marriage, sitting at a table where a woman in pearls was calling me selfish for refusing to sign over financial access while her son watched. Ryan put his hand on my thigh. This time, there was no disguise of affection. His fingers pressed hard enough to hurt. Stop, he said under his breath. I looked down at his hand. Then back up. Move your hand. He did not. Diane saw it. She saw his grip. She saw my face. She did nothing. That told me more than any speech could have. I reached under the table, took Ryan's wrist, and removed his hand from my leg. Slowly. Publicly. His jaw tightened. Madison whispered, Yikes. Ryan turned toward her. Shut up. She raised both hands. Don't yell at me. I'm not the one ruining brunch. That was when the circle closed. It is hard to explain that feeling unless you have lived it. 1 second, You are a guest at a table. The next, you understand the table is a trap. Every chair has a role. Diane was the judge. Mark was the silent permission. Madison was the chorus. Ryan was the man expected to bring me to heel. And I was not a daughter. I was not family. I was the resource being negotiated. I folded the agreement and placed it beside my plate. I'm taking this with me. Diane's hand shot out and covered it. No. You are not. Our eyes met. For the first time, she stopped sounding polite. That document was prepared for this family. And I'm not part of this family unless I sign it? Her nostrils flared. You are part of this family because my son married you. Then he can ask me himself. Ryan pushed back from the table. The chair scraped loudly. Kitchen, he said. No. His eyes widened. Just slightly. I do not think anyone in that room had ever told him no in front of his mother. I'm not discussing my finances in a second room, so you can pressure me without witnesses. His face changed. The handsome, careful Ryan I had married disappeared in pieces. First the smile, then the softness around the eyes, then the patient voice. What remained was not unfamiliar because it was new. It was terrifying because it looked practiced. You think you're very smart? He said. I think I'm allowed to read before I sign. You think because your dad has money, you can come in here and act like we're beneath you? I stared at him. That was the sentence. Not the loudest. Not the ugliest. But the one that opened the floor beneath everything. My dad has money. Not, I had concerns. Not, the document was wrong. Not, this was a bad time. My dad has money. There it was. The thing they had been circling since the engagement party. Since the lease. Since the wedding invoices. Since Diane asked whether my parents were comfortable. I leaned back in my chair. Is that what this is about? Ryan laughed once. Sharp and humorless. No. Claire. This is about being married? Something you apparently don't understand. Diane nodded slowly. Encouraged now. A wife cannot keep one foot out the door. I'm not keeping one foot out the door. I said. I'm refusing to give you the key. Mark stood. Not quickly. Not protectively. He stood like a man tired of noise. That's enough. For half a second, I thought he meant enough pressure. Enough bullying. Enough of this ambush disguised as brunch. Then he looked at Ryan. Handle your wife? Handle. Not talk to. Not listen to. Handle. Ryan's shame turned into something hotter. He moved so fast the table shook. His napkin fell to the floor. I stood. Too. Not because I thought he would hit me, but because some old instinct in my body understood before my mind did. Ryan. I said quietly. He stepped close enough for me to smell coffee on his breath. You will not disrespect my family in my mother's house. I'm not disrespecting your family. You are making me look like a fool. If a piece of paper can do that? Ryan, maybe you should ask why. His hand came up. And then it was over. The sound cracked through the dining room. My head turned with the force of it. My shoulder hit the back of the chair. Somewhere, glass clinked. The room froze. No one screamed. That was what I would remember later. Not the pain. The silence. People imagine violence as chaos. Sometimes it is quieter than that. Sometimes it is a whole family deciding, in the same breath, that what just happened is acceptable, as long as no one names it. My left cheek burned. Heat spread across my skin. My ear rang so loudly that Diane's voice came through thin and distant. Well, she said, maybe now we can all calm down. I turned my face back slowly. Ryan was breathing hard. His hand hung at his side now. The knuckles were pale. He looked angry. But underneath the anger, there was something else. Expectation. He was waiting for the old script. The apology. The lowered eyes. The soft voice. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to embarrass you. He was waiting for me, to help him make what he had done feel normal. I did not. I looked at Diane. Then Mark. Then Madison. Madison had one hand over her mouth. But her eyes were bright. Not horrified. Interested. That was the moment my marriage ended. Not legally. Not officially. But inside me, something signed itself free. I picked up my purse from the back of the chair. Ryan frowned. What are you doing? I did not answer. I opened the purse and removed the blue folder I had brought without knowing why. Maybe some part of me had known. Maybe women like me do not survive by being paranoid. Maybe we survive by keeping copies. I placed the folder on the table and opened it. The first page was the lease. The second was the wire confirmation. The third was the credit card account page, with my name printed as primary cardholder. The fourth was a spreadsheet I had made 3 nights earlier, because I had noticed charges I did not recognize. Diane's salon. Madison's certification deposit. A furniture store purchase. 2 grocery orders delivered to this address. A balance transfer I had never authorized, but had flagged and not yet confronted Ryan about, because the wedding was 3 days away, and I was exhausted. I laid the pages out one by one. No drama. No trembling. Just paper. Paper is a beautiful thing. When people who rely on emotion are suddenly forced to face facts. The townhouse lease is in my name. I said. Ryan's face went blank. The deposit and prepaid rent came from my account? Not yours. Not your mother's? Mine. Diane stared at the wire confirmation. Color drained from her face, in slow, uneven waves. The credit card your family has been using is my primary account. Everyone else is an authorized user. That means I can remove you. Madison lowered her glass. Wait. What? I looked at her. Your course payment went through my card. Her mouth opened, then closed. Mark reached for the credit card page, but I placed my hand over it. No. He froze. I slid the page back toward myself. You don't get to touch my documents. Ryan found his voice. You're being insane. I looked up at him. No. I'm being organized. His cheek twitched. You can't just cut me off. I can. We're married. For less than 24 hours. Diane's hand gripped the edge of the table. Claire. Don't be rash. That almost made me smile. Rash. The woman who had tried to get me to sign away financial access, between pancakes and mimosas, was warning me not to be rash. I picked up Diane's agreement. The top page still had my married name printed on the line. I looked at it for a moment. Then I dropped it into the bowl of syrup. The paper sank slowly. Amber liquid crawled over the words. Madison whispered, "Oh me God." I closed my blue folder. Ryan. I said, you have until tonight to remove your clothes, your shoes, and anything you personally brought into that townhouse. His eyes went wide. You can't evict your husband. You never signed the lease? From this point on, any access goes through my attorney. Diane stood so fast. Her chair knocked the wall. You spiteful little... Careful. I said. The word came out quiet. That made it land harder. Diane stopped. I looked at Ryan. If you come to the house angry, I won't open the door. If you try to force your way in, I will call the police. If you touch me again, I will press charges. His face twisted with disbelief. Not fear yet. That would come later. Right now, he still thought this was a performance. He still thought I was trying to win an argument. He did not understand that I had stopped arguing. I was making a record. Lisa stood near the window, pale and silent. One cousin stared at his plate. The other would not look at anyone. Mark said, "This is a family matter." I turned to him. No. A man hitting his wife is not a family matter. It's evidence. The word changed the room. Evidence. Diane flinched first. Ryan heard it second. Mark understood it last. I put my purse over my shoulder. Ryan stepped toward me. Claire. I looked at his hand. He stopped. Good. He was learning. I walked to the front door. Behind me, voices started rising over one another. Diane saying I was hysterical. Madison asking what would happen to her payment plan. Mark telling Ryan to fix this. Ryan saying my name over and over, each time less angry and more uncertain. I opened the door. Cold air hit my face. The sting in my cheek sharpened. For 1 second, I almost turned around. Not because I wanted to stay. Because it is strange to leave a life while the plates are still warm. Then Diane called from the dining room. This is not how a wife behaves. I paused, looked back once, and said, You're right. Diane lifted her chin. I finished. This is how a plaintiff behaves. Then I walked out. My car was parked at the curb behind Ryan's. I had insisted on driving separately because I had a work call scheduled for later that afternoon. At the time, Ryan had called it unnecessary. Now it felt like grace. My hands shook so badly. I dropped the keys once before I got the door open. I slid into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and sat with both palms on the steering wheel. Inside the house, the curtains moved. A shadow passed behind them. Then the front door opened. Ryan came out barefoot. He had not even taken the time to put on shoes. Claire, he called. Not loud. Not yet. He walked down 2 steps. I started the engine. He raised both hands. Come on. Don't do this. I lost my temper. I stared at him through the windshield. I lost my temper. As if his temper were a wallet dropped on the ground. As if he could pick it up, dust it off, and we could all go back to brunch. He took another step. Babe. Please. That word did something strange to me. Babe. He had called me that the night before, while unbuttoning the back of my wedding dress. He had called me that in the hospital parking lot, with coffee in his hands. He had called me that after my father wired the townhouse deposit. Now he said it, with my cheek swelling from his palm. I put the car in reverse. Ryan's expression changed. The soft plea cracked. Claire. Don't you dare drive away from me. There he was again. I backed out. He slapped one hand against the hood of my car. As I turned the wheel. Not hard enough to dent it. Hard enough to remind me. He still believed objects and women should respond to impact. I drove away. At the stop sign, my phone buzzed. Ryan. He let it ring. Then Diane. Then Ryan again. Then a text. You're blowing this out of proportion. Another. Come back and talk like an adult. Another. If you involve your father, you'll regret it. That was the one I screenshotted. Then I called my father. He answered on the second ring. Claire? I drove with both hands on the wheel. My cheek pulsed with every heartbeat. Dad. I said, I need the file. There was a silence. Not confusion. Recognition. When I got engaged, my father had asked me once, very quietly, if I wanted him to keep copies of all major financial documents connected to the wedding and townhouse. I had said yes. Ryan had laughed when I mentioned it. Your dad acts like we're merging companies, he said. Maybe we should have. At least companies understand liability. My father's voice changed. What happened? I swallowed. Ryan hit me. The silence that followed was the coldest thing I had ever heard. Then he said, Are you driving? Yes. Pull over if you need to. I'm okay. No. You're functional. That is not the same thing. For the first time that morning, my eyes burned. Not from grief. From the relief of being understood precisely. Go to urgent care. He said. Not later. Now. Tell them exactly what happened. Ask for copies of everything. Take photos every hour for the next day. Keep your receipts. Do not delete any texts. Okay. I'm calling Martin. Martin was my father's attorney. Of course there was a Martin. Men like my father did not panic. They activated professionals. And Claire? Yes? Do not go back inside any house where he is present. Not for clothes. Not for your laptop. Not for anything. I looked at the road ahead. The morning sun was bright enough to hurt. I won't. Ryan called again. I declined it. Then I blocked him. For one beautiful second, the car was silent. No Ryan. No Diane. No folder. No family. Just the hum of the road, and the sound of my own breathing. Uneven. But mine. At the next red light, I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. My left cheek had started to swell. A red mark stretched from the corner of my mouth toward my ear. It looked unreal on my face. Like an editing mistake. Like something that belonged to another woman, in another story. Then my phone buzzed once more. A message from an unknown number. Madison. Are you seriously cutting off the card? My program payment is due tomorrow. I stared at the message. Then I laughed. One short sound. Dry. Ugly. Perfect. The light turned green. I drove toward urgent care. And behind me, in Diane Whitaker's perfect dining room, the syrup had already soaked through every page of the agreement they thought would buy my obedience. Urgent care smelled like disinfectant, burnt coffee, and wet coats. The waiting room was half full. A little boy with a cough leaned against his mother's side. An older man sat with a paper towel wrapped around his thumb. A woman in scrubs stood at the counter, arguing quietly about insurance. I walked to the check-in desk, with my purse on one shoulder and my left cheek swelling by the minute. The receptionist looked up. Her eyes landed on my face. Then her expression changed. In the careful way trained people change their expressions, when they understand something, but do not want to scare you. Can I help you? My husband hit me, I said. The words came out clean. Not loud. Not shaking. Just clean. The receptionist stopped typing. Then she slid a clipboard toward me and lowered her voice. Are you safe right now? I thought about Ryan barefoot on the porch. Diane standing over her ruined agreement. Madison texting me about a tuition payment, before asking if I was okay. Yes, I said. I left. She nodded. Fill this out. I'm going to mark it urgent. On the intake form, under reason for visit, I wrote, facial injury after being struck by spouse. I stared at the sentence for a moment after I wrote it. There are things that become more real once they exist in ink. A nurse called my name 12 minutes later. She took me into a small exam room, with pale blue walls and a paper-covered table. She asked what happened. I told her. No embellishment. No crying. No softening. My husband slapped me with an open hand, in front of his family, at approximately 10:40 this morning. The nurse's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed gentle. Did you lose consciousness? No. Any vision changes? No. Dizziness? A little ringing in my left ear. She took photographs with the clinic tablet. After asking my permission. Front angle. Left side. Close-up. Another close-up, with the measuring ruler beside the swelling. Then the physician assistant came in. He examined my cheek. Meyef. My ear. My neck. Pain when you bite down? A little. Any numbness? No? He pressed lightly near my cheekbone. A sharp pain flashed behind my eye. I inhaled through my teeth. He stopped. I'm documenting facial contusion and soft tissue swelling, he said. Given what you reported, I'm also including that the injury is consistent with being struck by another person. Can I get copies today? He looked at me for half a second, then nodded. Yes. And the visit summary? Yes. And the photos? They'll be in the record. We can print what we're allowed to release. and you can access the rest through the portal. Thank you. He paused at the door before leaving. Do you want us to call anyone? I almost said no. Then I thought about the text Ryan had sent. If you involve your father, you'll regret it? Yes. I said, I'd like information on filing a police report. The nurse returned with discharge papers, domestic violence resources, and a look on her face that told me she had handed this packet to too many women before me. By the time I left urgent care, I had 14 missed calls. Ryan. Diane. Ryan again. Unknown number. Diane again. Then Mark. Then Ryan. I did not listen to a single voicemail. I screenshotted the call log. Then I drove to the townhouse. The neighborhood looked the same. Maple trees. Clean sidewalks. A neighbor walking a golden retriever. A delivery truck idling near the curb. That was one of the strangest parts of that day. The world did not know my marriage had ended. The sky did not darken. The birds did not stop. The same little wind chime on the porch next door rang when the breeze moved. I parked in the driveway and sat there for a moment. Looking at the front door, the house still looked like a promise. Tall windows. Warm brick. 2 planters Diane had insisted would soften the entrance, then charged to my card. I went inside. The first thing I did was lock the door behind me. The second thing I did was change the smart lock code. Ryan's code was his birthday. Of course it was. I opened the security app, deleted his user profile, deleted the temporary code Diane had asked for, just in case, and created a new code. No one in his family could guess. Then I called the property manager. Hey. This is Claire Bennett. Unit 14B. There was a pause. Mrs. Whitaker? Bennett. I said. I'm keeping my legal name. Another pause. Of course. How can I help? I need to confirm that I'm the only tenant listed on the lease. Yes. That's correct. And no one else has authorized access. Unless I provide written permission? That's correct. I'm sending you an email now. My husband is not on the lease and does not have permission to enter the property without me present. If he contacts your office for access, case, maintenance entry, or a code reset, please deny it and direct him to contact me in writing. The property manager became very professional. Very quickly. Understood. Please send that in writing. We'll add a note to the file. I also need the emergency contact updated. Of course. Remove Ryan Whitaker. Add my father. I hung up and sent the email before I even took off my coat. Then I walked through the townhouse with a laundry basket and gathered every document that mattered. Passport. Birth certificate. Social security card. Lease. Bank statements. Wedding vendor receipts. Credit card statements. Insurance papers. The prenuptial agreement Ryan had refused to sign because, in his words, planning for divorce is bad energy. Funny. People who dislike written boundaries usually have a reason. I scanned everything into a secure folder and uploaded copies to cloud storage. My father had access to. Then I sat at the kitchen island, opened my laptop, and began cutting wires. First, the credit card. The main account was mine. Ryan was an authorized user. Diane had a secondary card for wedding-related family errands, which had somehow kept working after the wedding, because I had been too busy, and too trusting, to shut it down. Madison had no card in her name, but her payments were attached to Diane's. I called the issuer. The representative asked security questions. Mother's maiden name? Last 4 digits. Recent transaction. Then she asked, how can I assist you today? I need to remove all authorized users immediately and freeze every secondary card attached to this account. There was a brief pause. All authorized users? Yes. Would you like replacement cards issued? No. I want the existing account locked for review. And I want all authorized user cards declined going forward. Understood? May I ask whether the cards were lost or stolen? I looked at the bruise forming on my cheek, reflected faintly in the black screen of the microwave. Misused. I said. She typed for a while. Then she said, "The changes are effective immediately." Immediately. A beautiful word. Next. The bank account. Ryan and I had opened one joint checking account, 6 weeks before the wedding, for household expenses. He had deposited $4,000. I had deposited $32,000. The difference had not mattered then, because I thought the account was practical. Now it mattered very much. I transferred the amount traceable to my deposits into my personal account and left his $4,000 untouched. Then I downloaded the transaction history. There were charges I recognized. Utilities. Groceries. A couch. There were also transfers I did not. 3 payments to a loan company. 2 to Madison's training program. 1 large payment to a catering vendor. I had already paid directly. I stared at that line for a long time. Then I downloaded that, too. My phone lit up. Ryan. From a new number. Open the door tonight. We need to talk like adults. I screenshotted it. Another message followed. My mom is crying. You humiliated her. Another. You think paperwork makes you powerful? That one made me stop. I looked at the stack of documents beside me. Lease. Medical report. Credit statements. Bank records. Screenshots. Then I typed one sentence. Do not contact me except through an attorney. I saw it. Then I blocked the number. At 2:30 that afternoon, I walked into Martin Hale's office, with my cheeks swollen, me faller full, and my wedding ring in my coat pocket. Martin had been my father's attorney for 15 years. He was not warm. He was better than warm. He was precise. He took one look at my face, then at the folder, then said, "Conference room." My father was already there. He stood when I walked in. For a moment, his face broke. Only for a moment. Then he crossed the room and held me very gently, like anger had made him careful. "I'm okay," I said. "No," he said into my hair. "You're here." Again, the precision almost undid me. Martin gave us 3 minutes. Then we sat. I placed everything on the table. The agreement, the lease, the wire confirmation, the urgent care report, the photographs, the credit card records, the bank transfers, the texts. Martin put on reading glasses and went through each document without speaking. My father did not interrupt. Neither did I. After almost 20 minutes, Martin removed his glasses. "Good," he said. That was all. Good. Not because I had been hit. Because I had documented it. He tapped the urgent care papers. "This matters." Then the lease. "This helps." Then the credit card records. "This is leverage." Then Diane's syrup-stained agreement, sealed inside a plastic sleeve, because I had taken it from the bowl before leaving. "This is stupid of them." I almost laughed. Martin continued. "You have been married less than 24 hours. You have clear separate property arguments for the townhouse deposit and prepaid rent. He is not on the lease. The credit account is yours. The joint account needs to be handled carefully, but if your deposits are traceable, we have a clean argument." "And the slap?" my father asked. Martin's face did not change. "The slap gives us options. Civil. Criminal. Protective. We can decide how aggressive to be, based on what she wants." He looked at me. "Not my father?" "Me." That mattered. "What do you want?" "Claire?" I answered without hesitation. "I want him out of my house. I want the cards closed. I want my money protected. I want a divorce or annulment as fast as legally possible. I want no direct contact. And I want him to understand that if he touches me again, I will not negotiate. Martin nodded. Then we start today. By 5 o'clock, Ryan had received an email from Martin's office. By 5:30, the property manager had confirmed in writing that Ryan was not a leaseholder. By 6, the authorized user cards were dead. By 7 to 10, Ryan arrived at the townhouse. I watched him through the security camera, from the living room sofa. I had not turned on the lights. The screen showed him clearly. Navy sweater, dark jeans, one overnight bag slung over his shoulder, like he had decided to perform. Reasonable husband coming home to work things out. He punched in his birthday code. The lock beeped red. He frowned. Tried again. Red. He looked over his shoulder, like the street itself had embarrassed him. Then he tried the code Diane had used once, when she dropped off curtains. Red. That was when his posture changed. He rang the bell. I did not move. He rang again. Then he called. The phone did not ring, because he was blocked. He leaned close to the camera. Claire. Open the door. His voice was still controlled. Barely. I know you're in there. I sat with my hands folded in my lap. My cheek throbbed. A bruise had begun to darken under the skin. Ryan knocked. Then knocked harder. Claire? This is ridiculous. The porch light clicked on automatically. That made the whole thing feel staged. He looked less like a husband, and more like a man trying to enter a house that had never belonged to him. He lowered his voice. Bobby. Come on. I said I was sorry. He had not. Not once. He had said I was dramatic, childish, humiliating, disloyal, and out of control, but not sorry. He knocked again. This time, the neighbor across the street opened her curtain. Ryan saw it. His face changed. For a man like Ryan, being seen failing was worse than being wrong. He stepped back from the door and forced a laugh, as if he and the locked house were sharing a private joke. Then he leaned toward the camera again. You're going to regret this. I saved the clip. Then I sent it to Martin. At 8:03, Diane called from an unknown number. I did not answer. At 8:06, Madison texted. My card got declined. What did you do? At 8 to 10, Diane texted. This is financial abuse. I stared at that message for a long time. Financial abuse. From the woman who had tried to get me to sign over $4,000 a month into an account she controlled. I sent that screenshot to Martin. 2. The next morning, Ryan's card was declined at a coffee shop near his office. I know because Madison told me. Not on purpose. She called from another number, furious, and left a voicemail long enough to become evidence. Do you know what you did to him? He was in front of his whole team. Claire. His whole team. He tried to pay for everyone's coffee, and the card got declined. The cashier said it was frozen. Frozen. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I listened to that part twice. Not because I enjoyed it. Because I needed to remember the scale of their concern. My face swollen from Ryan's hand. A misunderstanding. Ryan embarrassed in front of coworkers? A tragédie. By noon, the panic had spread. Diane left 4 voicemails. The first was angry. The second was threatening. The third was tearful. The fourth was honest. Not intentionally. But panic makes people careless. You cannot just shut everything down, she said. There are obligations attached to that card. Madison's program. The furniture. The wedding balance. The bridge loan. You have no idea what kind of position you're putting this family in. Bridge loan. That was new. I forwarded it to Martin. He called me 6 minutes later. Did you know about a bridge loan? No. Did you sign anything? No. Good. There was that word again. Good. Over the next week, the story underneath the story revealed itself. Ryan's family was not comfortable. They were extended. Maxed out. Performing. The wedding had not been a celebration. It had been a gamble. Diane had assumed that once I became family, my income, my credit, and my father's money would become part of the Whitaker ecosystem. Not officially. Not in a way anyone would say out loud. But through pressure. Through guilt. Through emergencies. Through phrases like, "We take care of each other." And if I resisted, Ryan was supposed to handle me. That was what the brunch had been. Not a meal. A transfer of control. The slap only made the truth visible. 2 weeks later, Ryan sat across from Martin, in a private conference room downtown. I was there. But I did not sit beside Ryan. I sat beside my attorney. That small detail seemed to bother him more than the paperwork. He looked older than he had on our wedding day. Not dramatically. Just smaller. His suit was wrinkled. His tie was too tight. There were shadows under his eyes. And one of his hands kept opening and closing around nothing. Martin slid the agreement across the table. "Sign. And this ends cleanly." Ryan laughed once. It came out dry. "Cleanly? She ruins my life and now wants clean?" I said nothing. Martin did not blink. "My client is willing to waive certain claims. In exchange for a fast dissolution, no claim against the townhouse. No claim against her separate accounts. No contact except through counsel. And mutual return of personal property." Ryan leaned back. "That house was our marital home. It was a leased property, signed solely by my client before the marriage, funded by my client, occupied by you for less than 2 weeks, and locked after a documented assault." Ryan's face twitched. I lost my temper. Martin opened a folder. He placed the urgent care photographs on the table. One at a time. My cheek. Miyaf. The swelling near my ear. The timestamp. Ryan stopped talking. Martin placed the medical report beside them. Then the screenshots. Then the video still of Ryan at my door, saying I would regret it. "Mr. Whitaker," Martin said, "you are free not to sign. But if you choose to fight, my client is prepared to file a formal report. She is also prepared to pursue protective options, and everything is supported by medical records. Photo. And your own messages." Ryan looked at me then. Really looked. Not at my face. At my stillness. I think that was when he understood. I was not trying to punish him into becoming the man I thought I married. I did not want that man anymore. I wanted distance. Paper. Locks. Legal finality. His phone buzzed on the table. He ignored it. It buzzed again. Then again. Finally, he looked down. "Diane." "Of course," he answered in a whisper, but the room was quiet enough to hear her voice crack through the speaker. "Ryan. Just sign it." His eyes closed. Diane kept talking. "The loan people called again. Madison's payment bounced. Your father is losing his mind. We cannot afford lawyers on top of everything else. Just sign and come home." Come home. Not to me. To her. The sentence landed in the room like a verdict. Ryan opened his eyes. For one brief second, I saw the whole structure collapse inside him. He had not been a husband. Not really. He had been a son, playing head of household, with someone else's credit limit. He picked up the pen. His hand shook. He signed his name so hard the paper dented. When he finished, he pushed the document away like it had burned him. Then he looked at me. "You planned this?" I met his eyes. "No," I said. "You revealed it?" He had no answer for that. Martin gathered the papers. The meeting ended in less than an hour. Ryan left first. Through the glass wall, I watched him step into the hallway and call his mother. His shoulders folded inward while he listened. By then, I felt no victory. Only clarity. Some people think losing control is the same as being attacked. Ryan thought I had destroyed him. Diane thought I had betrayed the family. Madison thought I had stolen her future. But all I had done was remove my name My money, my credit, and my silence? From a machine that had been built to consume them. That machine did not collapse because I attacked it. It collapsed because I stopped feeding it. 1 month after the wedding, Ryan moved back into his childhood bedroom. Not temporarily. Not while things cooled down. Back. His mother called it regrouping. Madison called it a nightmare. Ryan called it nothing. Because by then, he had stopped posting on social media, stopped answering old friends, and stopped wearing the wedding ring he had once tapped proudly against restaurant glasses to make people notice. The townhouse was cleared out in less than a week. Martin arranged a time for Ryan to collect his things. While I was not home, the property manager opened the door. A security officer stood in the entryway. Ryan was allowed 2 hours. He took his clothes, his gaming console, 3 boxes of shoes, a framed college diploma, and the expensive espresso machine he had once told people was ours, even though I had bought it during a Black Friday sale 6 months before he moved in. I let him take it. Not because he deserved it, because peace is worth more than appliances. The lease ended cleanly. The landlord returned the unused prepaid rent and deposit to the account it had come from. My father did not say, "I told you so." He did not need to. The wire confirmation said it for him. The divorce moved quickly, because Ryan had no money to fight, and too much to lose if he tried. No drawn-out courtroom drama. No dramatic final speech. No scene where he broke down and confessed everything. Just signatures. Stamped documents. Emails. The quiet machinery of consequences. That was almost disappointing. In a strange way. Part of me had expected the end of a marriage to sound like glass breaking. Instead, it sounded like a scanner. 1 page at a time. Beep. 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 Diane tried to save face. Of course she did. Women like Diane do not apologize. They revise. At church, she told people I had been emotionally unstable from the stress of the wedding. At her book club, she said modern women were not raised for commitment. At a neighborhood luncheon, she implied Ryan had escaped before things became worse. But gossip has a way of traveling with receipts. The florist knew my father had paid the final balance. The restaurant knew Diane's card had declined before mine covered the rehearsal dinner. The property manager knew Ryan was never on the lease. And one of Ryan's cousins, the younger one who had sat silently at brunch, apparently told his girlfriend what really happened. By the 2nd month, Diane's story had holes big enough for people to walk through. I heard about one luncheon from Lisa, the aunt from brunch. She called me from a number I did not recognize. I almost did not answer. When I did, she said, "I'm not asking you to forgive anyone." I stayed silent. She exhaled. "I just wanted you to know." Diane tried to tell the ladies. "You abandoned Ryan over a misunderstanding." I almost laughed. A misunderstanding. That word has done more work in bad families than any other word in the English language. Lisa continued. Then Karen Whitlock asked if the misunderstanding was the part where he hit you, or the part where his mother tried to get access to your bank account. I did laugh then. Not kindly, but honestly. What did Diane say? Nothing useful. I pictured it. Diane sitting upright. Pearls tight at her throat. Surrounded by women who had smiled at her Christmas parties for years, and were now quietly enjoying the collapse of her performance. I did not feel bad for her. That surprised me less than I thought it would. Madison lasted 3 weeks, before her certification program dropped her from the payment plan. The card on file had been Diane's authorized user card under my account. When it died, so did the illusion that Madison's future had been funded by family support. It had been funded by me. A woman she had mocked, with a mimosa in her hand. She got a job at a boutique fitness studio first, working the front desk. Then at a coffee shop, after the studio cut her hours. I saw her once. Not on purpose. I was leaving a pharmacy near my office when I looked across the parking lot and saw her through the glass window of the coffee shop. She was wearing a black apron, trying to explain to an irritated customer that oat milk cost extra. The customer rolled her eyes. Madison's face flushed. For a second, she looked exactly the way she had made me feel at brunch. Small. Cornered. Expected to smile. She saw me through the window. Her whole body went still. I did not wave. I did not go inside. I just got into my car and left. There are some people you do not need to confront. Once life starts speaking their language. Ryan kept his job. But not his image. Those are different things. His company did not fire him. There was no public scandal. No dramatic security escort. No headline. But offices run on quiet information. Someone had been at the coffee shop when his card declined. Someone had seen the way his face changed. Someone knew the wedding had been expensive. Someone noticed he stopped talking about his wife after the honeymoon that never happened. And eventually, someone always asks the wrong person the right question. I heard he moved back into his mother's house because a mutual acquaintance saw him carrying laundry baskets from his car into the side entrance. I heard he started avoiding happy hours. I heard Diane blamed him for not managing the situation properly. That sounded right. In Diane's mind, the problem was never that her son hit his wife. The problem was that he hit the wrong wife. One with paperwork. One with witnesses. One with a father who answered the phone, and an attorney who knew where to send letters. The last thing Ryan ever sent me directly came through email. Because every other route was blocked. No subject line. Just one sentence. I hope you're proud of what you did. I stared at it for a while. Then I moved it into the folder Martin had told me to keep. I did not respond. That was the final gift I gave myself. No explanation. No defense. No performance of closure. For the person who created the wound. 3 months after the brunch, I was sitting at my parents' kitchen table, on a rainy Saturday afternoon. Not the formal dining room. Not some dramatic place where people make speeches. Just the kitchen table. The same table where I had filled out college applications, eaten cereal after late shifts, and cried at 24 because I thought one bad job had ruined my future. My mother was making tomato soup on the stove. My father was burning grilled cheese in a cast iron pan, and insisting the black edges were flavor? Rain tapped softly against the windows. A football game played low from the den. No one asked me to explain myself. No one asked why I had not seen it sooner. No one told me I should have tried harder. My mother set a bowl of soup in front of me and kissed the top of my head as she passed. My father slid a grilled cheese onto my plate. One side was almost black. He looked at it, frowned, and said, "That one's yours? You like crispy? I do not. You did when you were 7? I also ate glue when I was 7. My mother laughed. My father pointed the spatula at me. You survived both. And for the first time in months, I laughed without feeling it catch on anything sharp. I picked up half the sandwich. The cheese stretched. Then broke. The soup steamed against my face. And without meaning to, I thought about Diane's dining room. The white folder. The lemon slices in the orange juice. Ryan's hand tightening on my knee. The silence after the slap. That silence had been full of instructions. Lower your eyes. Apologize. Protect him. Protect them. Call it stress. Call it tradition. Call it a misunderstanding. Do anything except tell the truth? Then I looked at the table in front of me. Crumbs near my father's plate. A spoon resting on a folded paper towel. 3 bowls that did not match. Nothing polished. Nothing staged. Nothing waiting for me to perform. My father dipped his sandwich into his soup and looked up. You want more? I looked at my bowl. Then at him. Then at my mother, standing at the stove in slippers, stirring soup like the world had not almost convinced me that family meant surrender. No. I said, I'm good. And I meant it. Not perfect. not untouched. Good. That was enough. Ryan thought the slap ended an argument. It did not. It ended the performance. Diane thought that agreement would make me easier to control. It did not. It only showed me the price they expected me to pay. And once I saw the price, I walked out before they could charge me twice. If this story made you hold your breath, stay with me. Because some families do not reveal who they are at the wedding. They wait until the first meal after.